l'honorabilité de Lac-Saint-Louis.
Sure. As I was studying the budget document in preparation for this speech, I found that the title, like others in this House, I found that the title is a bit of a misnomer. The title, Leading the Way to Jobs and Growth, should be rather, in my opinion, a title as follows, perhaps, Missed Opportunities Letting Others Take the Lead. I think that would more appropriately describe this budget. Now, the budget, and the reason I say that, Mr. Speaker, is that the budget is a missed opportunity to begin, or in some cases continue, laying the groundwork for solutions to many of the problems we face today and will face in the future. As my main area of interest as a member of the Environment Committee is water policy, I, of course, look at the budget through the lens of water. And I think a good starting point in terms of comparing the weaknesses of this document to what it could have been would be to look at the Ontario throne speech, which was delivered only a few short days ago, and which, contrary to the throne speech that was delivered on March 3rd here on Parliament Hill, that throne speech is only half as many words, yet says so much more. Let me read to you a few lines from that throne speech. It says, as part of its Open Ontario plan, your government will introduce legislation that will build on Ontario's expertise in clean water technology. The Water Opportunities Act would lay the foundation for new Ontario jobs and make our province the North American leader in the development and sale of new technologies and services for water conservation and treatment. The Conference Board of Canada estimates the global market for water technology at more than $400 billion US per year and doubling every 5 to 6 years. So, Mr. Speaker, the question becomes why does the budget, the federal budget and the throne speech that preceded it, why does it not include visionary statements such as that? And I think the reason is that the government does not believe in vision. I think it believes that vision is liberal philosophy's evil twin. And therefore, it doesn't think in visionary terms. And when you don't think in visionary terms, you miss opportunities. There are things staring at you that you can't see, Mr. Speaker. And that's the problem when you don't have a vision. And just to give you an example, how the government has eschewed the whole notion of vision. If you recall, I presented a motion in this House a few years ago calling on the government to create a national water strategy. Now, if the government was thinking in terms of a national water strategy, it would see the opportunities for actions like the government of Ontario has mentioned in its throne speech. Now, the motion passed. The motion passed because I guess many of the members on the government side did not feel that they could look their constituents in the eye if they voted against such an obvious and important motion. However, that was 3 years ago. And if you go to the government's website today, there is no national water strategy. There is a PDF file called a national water policy, Mr. Speaker. But if you click on that PDF file, you'll see that that national water policy is the Pierce report that was commissioned in 1987 by the Mulroney government. So as a metaphor for the way this government looks backwards, you just go and look at the website and you see that it has posted as its national water policy a report, a task force report from 1987. I think that says a lot, Mr. Speaker. Now, it also forgot to mention in the budget the St. Lawrence River. Now, the St. Lawrence River is one of the 15 largest waterways in the world. Its watershed occupies 1/3 of the territory of the province of Quebec. About 40% of Quebec's municipalities draw their drinking water from the river. And more than 75% of Quebec's industrial facilities, including its large hydroelectric plants, are located on the St. Lawrence River. And finally, the St. Lawrence Valley contains 70% of Quebec's population, yet we don't hear a word about the St. Lawrence River. And why is it particularly important in March of 2010 that the budget mention the St. Lawrence River, Mr. Speaker? It's because the St. Lawrence Action Plan, the fourth installment of the St. Lawrence Action Plan, which extended from 2005 to 2010, ended March 31st, 2010, and there's still nothing to replace it. There's still nothing to replace it. It's one of the most important rivers in the world, one of the most important rivers in Canada and North America, and the government hasn't even begun to think about extending the St. Lawrence Action Plan. So again, that's what happens, Mr. Speaker, when you don't have a visionary mindset. You don't see the obvious, and I think that's very unfortunate. Now, Mr. Speaker, the budget also will give extraordinary powers to the Minister of the Environment to undermine environmental assessment in Canada. Let me give you a bit of background on this, Mr. Speaker. There's a practice going on, especially in northern communities, especially in northern mining communities, where mining companies, to save money, instead of building impoundment areas for mine tailings, take those mine tailings and dump them in freshwater lakes, thereby killing the lakes. Now, this has been permitted by an amendment, I guess, or a part of the metal mining effluent regulations called Schedule 2 that allows a mine to be listed on Schedule 2, and therefore it is given permission to use a lake as basically as a tailings pond. Now, Mr. Speaker, ever since this government took power, the number of mines that have been added to this list has exploded. This while in the United States the opposite is happening. In the United States, Mr. Speaker, one of the first things the Obama administration did was it put on hold some 200 coal mining permits from companies that wanted to dump waste in streams and wetlands. So while the Obama administration is protecting its water bodies, in Canada, this government is rushing to destroy them. And I think that's really unfortunate. Now, the solution to that would be to make environmental assessments stronger. You see, what happens, Mr. Speaker, is when, in the past, when a project came to a federal department for environmental assessment, the Department of Fisheries, in this case, would split up the project into different pieces, and then they would do a kind of cursory assessment of each little piece of the project. Because if you look at the project as a whole, you would need a much more comprehensive kind of assessment, maybe even a panel assessment. But officials in the Department of Fisheries were not doing that. They were, in fact, undermining the principles of environmental assessment. So what happened? Some environmental groups took the government to court and won in the Supreme Court of Canada as a short time ago, as about a month ago. And how did the government respond to that? Well, in the budget, it gave the Minister of the Environment the power, the legal power, to basically reverse that Supreme Court decision by now having the power to define the scope of a project. So now the Minister can do what fisheries officials were doing before, which was found to be against the spirit and the letter of the Canadian Environmental Assessment Act when the Supreme Court looked at the issue. So now we have a government that's going to make sure that mining companies can still use fresh water lakes as dumping grounds for toxic mine tailings, and I think that's an awful development, Mr. Speaker, and I hope that more attention is given to that by environmental groups who are already doing good work on trying to underscore this problem, but also by the media and by other parliamentarians. Now, Mr. Speaker, the budget mentioned that the government would be investing in a radar-sat project. I think it's called a comprehensive radar-sat constellation mission, which is essentially a process for linking up satellites. Now, that's all fine and well, but the government's been dragging its feet with respect to radar-sat on another water issue. Ducks Unlimited, in partnership with Environment Canada and the Canadian Space Agency, had begun phase 1 of what is called the Canadian Wetlands Inventory. So this is a project to map all of Canada's wetlands. And the reason it's important, Mr. Speaker, is that Canada contains about 25% of the world's wetlands, more than any other country in the world. So wetlands are very important to us. They're an essential part of the hydrologic cycle. And this project had begun, but was then starved of funding by Environment Canada. So they never got beyond the point of establishing the methodology for mapping Canada's wetlands. So why did the government not take the opportunity of the budget to mention that it would relaunch this project, that it would fund phase 2? Because this, as I say, is an extremely important issue, especially in the oil sands, where we found out last week that oil sands companies now say that they can not afford to restore the wetlands that they're destroying, even though they made commitments to do so previously, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.